Hi there, and thanks for watching this video. My name is Jessica Wilkinson, and I'm one of the liaison librarians. My email address is jwilkinson@qmu.ac.uk. I look after these subjects here, so nursing, paramedics, radiography, dietetics and nutrition, and international and global health. So the examples I'm using in this video will be health-based, but the process of setting up a search strategy and using that in one of the library databases is the same regardless of which subject you're studying. So this is part one. So in this part, we're looking at setting up a search strategy, why you might want to do that, and the whole process involved in preparing for a database search. Then in part two, I'm using the search strategy that we've created in this video, and I'm going into some of our databases and trying out a keyword search and a mesh search and a few other things. So sort of the theoretical part is in this video and the practical part in part two. So this is the usual process that you go through when you've been given a written assignment to complete or a research project. So first of all, you have to think of your research question. Then you try and identify the key concepts involved in that research question. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Then you start constructing your search strategy. You identify different search terms to try in a database later on. And then once you've got your search strategy all set up, you can go into the databases and try out your searches. Sometimes, though, it's useful to flip this process back to front. So if you're not quite sure about your research question, it can be useful to go into the databases first and try out a few searches to see what's written on the topic that you have in mind. It's useful to see how people have approached it before. What aspects have they written about? Is there a gap in our knowledge, etc.? It can be tricky to do a literature review if there's not enough written on the aspect that you've picked. So it's useful to see if there's enough literature available for you to work with, but if there's also sort of a gap in our knowledge that you can explore when you do your own project. So this is our research topic here that we're using in this video. So it's the clinical examination of appendicitis. And I've identified the key concepts here. So I've got clinical examination and I've got appendicitis. So they're my main building blocks in this research question. I can imagine putting these into a database and getting relevant results back. You may have more than two key concepts in your research question, and that's absolutely fine. I'm just trying to keep it nice and simple in this particular example. So I've got my key concepts. So what I normally do now is I get a piece of paper or a blank Word document and I start thinking about keywords related to those key concepts. So you have to bear in mind plurals and other word endings. So we might have nurse, nurses, nursing, for instance. And in that case, you can think, okay, what is the root of the word? What part of the word always stays the same? And then you can pop in one of these asterisks, a little star symbol at the end. That tells the database to search for all possible word endings. So it saves you lots of typing. It's called truncation. You can also make use of phrase searching. So if you have more than one word involved in a search term, like mental health, for instance, you can pop these double quotation marks in either side of that phrase. That keeps those words together as a phrase and stops the database from going off searching for the word mental on its own and the word health on its own. Keeps them together. Also have a think of synonyms and alternative words. Which words might academics use when they write about your topic? Are there any medical terms? Have a think of everyday words as well and write them all down. There could be abbreviations and acronyms as well. And sometimes there's variations in spelling between the UK and the US, so write down all the variations of those words. The reason you have to do this is that the library databases only work with what you actually type in. It won't go off and search for synonyms automatically like Google might do. You'll only get what you specifically ask for. So you have to think of all the possible words that people might use when they write about your topic. Also have a think about filters that you might want to apply in the database. You might be interested in a particular geographical location, a particular group of patients. Maybe you're only looking at like the last 5 years of publications or the last 10 years of research, for instance. So there'll be filters for that in the database. And we'll have a look at all that in part 2. So this is what we end up with. This is my search strategy. So the research topic was the clinical examination of appendicitis. So I've got my key concepts up at the top. I've got clinical examination and appendicitis. And then I've listed all the search terms that I could think of. So I've got clinical examination, I've got diagnosis, diagnostic imaging, CT scan, ultrasound, blood test, physical examination, and then appendi for appendicitis to capture appendix and appendicitis. And I've made use of the phrase search and the truncation where applicable. I've also had to think about filters. So I want to look at the last 5 years. I only want to retrieve peer-reviewed material, and I'm going to tick the full text filter to make sure that I can actually read the full text of the articles that I retrieve. You might be able to make use of other filters, such as gender, age, and the geographical filter as well. Here's just another example with a different research question. So in this case, it's how does social media influence the dietary choices of UK university students? So I've got more key concepts here. I've got social media, diet, university, student, and UK. And I've already thought that maybe I don't actually need the key concept to do with student there. Because if the articles talk about social media, diet, university, and UK, they're probably going to be talking about university students anyway. There might be a few articles that maybe talk about university staff, but I'm thinking that the vast majority of the articles will be talking about students, but I can try out different things once I'm in the database. So again, I've just listed any search terms that I could think of, different kinds of social media, and so on. For the UK, I might be able to make use of the geographical filter, and I might not need to actually have any search terms to do with the UK. But I want to try both. Sometimes the geographical filter is really good, but sometimes it's not great. In that case, you can try to incorporate the geographical location as a separate key concept and search for terms to do with your location and see if that's better than the filter. Look at both sets of results that you get and see which way worked best. So we got our search strategy with all the different words, but we need to think about how to combine those different words now. So these are called Boolean operators, and you might already be familiar with these. So I've got 3 different ones here along the top, and, or, and not. You'll probably just be using the first 2. So and is what we use to combine 2 or more different key concepts together. So clinical exam and appendi in this case. That tells the database to just retrieve articles that contain both of these terms. There'll be probably thousands of articles talking about clinical examination in different contexts. And another set of thousands of articles talking about appendix and appendicitis in other contexts. The AND operator tells the database to only retrieve articles where they both appear together. Articles that talk about both of these key concepts. The OR operator is what we use to link all the different synonyms together. So clinical exam, or diagnosis, or blood test, and so on. So it gives these terms equal weight. So we're saying if the author's talking about clinical examination, I'm happy. I'm equally happy if they've called it diagnosis instead, or this thing, or that thing. The NOT operator is quite a blunt tool, and we don't usually recommend that you use this one because you might accidentally end up filtering out articles that could have been of use to you. But sometimes when you do searching, you end up with a subset of articles talking about a particular aspect or topic that you're actually not interested in. And whatever you try with your search terms and your filters, like those articles keep appearing in your list of results. And if there's so many of them that you can't manually just filter them out, or like skip past them, then you might want to try the not operator. So if we did our search and we got lots of articles talking about diagnostic imaging and we weren't interested in that, we could do a clinical exam or diagnosis and append not diagnostic imaging. And I'll show you this in practice in part 2. Thing is that you won't know how effective your search strategy is until you've tried it out. It might look really good on paper, but once you use it in a database, you might not be retrieving exactly the kind of articles that you were hoping to get. It's extremely common to have to go back and edit your search terms, play around with the filters. It's all trial and error. And you might also need to try a few different databases. If it's just not working out, you're not retrieving relevant articles, try a different database and see if your search works better there. The benefits of having a search strategy is that it will save you time. You'll be doing much more structured searching. And the second point here is quite important as well. If you have a search strategy, you can account for how you search for literature and why you chose to work with the articles that you end up referring to in your own work. You can show that you had a methodological approach to literature searching. You didn't just go into Google and grab like the top 20 hits there. You approached it in almost a scientific way. You can show which search terms you use, which filters you applied, and how that links in with your research question. Again, there might be millions of articles written on your topic, and you can then show how you chose those like 25 or 50 or 100 articles that you end up citing in your work. Why those particular ones? Why you're not looking at the other ones? And you can also show off your skills and awareness of the literature searching process. Anyone can Google, but constructing a good search strategy and using it effectively in a library database is a skill in its own right. The library databases are also good because you can take a filter for peer-reviewed material, which means you get relevant, trustworthy results in a matter of minutes, and that can be tricky to do on Google. Peer review is a process that journals go through. So when articles are submitted and before they actually get published, the journal editors send the articles out to experts in the field, and they fact-check them, make sure the study has been run properly, that the findings are reliable, and so on. What I've talked about so far is called keyword searching. It's free text, you make up your own search terms and you type them in. Usually that works really well, and for most students that's all the searching they need to do. There is, however, another way of searching as well, and if this seems a little bit abstract now, don't worry, I'll be doing this in practice in part 2. So this second way of searching is called mesh searching or thesaurus searching. It's called different things in different databases, but it works in the same way. It's called thesaurus in ProQuest, it's called mesh in Medline, or CINAHL headings in CINAHL. It's searching articles by using preset categories. I like to compare it to shopping online because it makes it a little bit more sort of practical. And I'll explain more in a minute. So this second way of searching can be useful if you're struggling to find relevant articles when you do your keyword searching. There's also a particular kind of literature review called a systematic literature review, and your whole aim there is to retrieve everything that's written on a very particular niche subject. So for systematic literature reviews, it's good practice to do both a keyword search and a mesh search to make sure you've not missed anything. I also find it quite useful to just go in and have a look at the preset categories, just to see how the database labels particular things. It can give you ideas of more synonyms to add to your keyword search strategy. So even if you're not planning on actually proceeding with a mesh search, it can be useful just to go in and have a look at the categories. So like I said, I like to compare this to shopping online. So let's pretend you're on eBay and you want to see all the rain jackets so you can get a good deal. So you start to think, okay, what can I search for? So you think, okay, rain jacket, raincoat, waterproof jacket, waterproof coat, Gore-Tex jacket, Gore-Tex coat, and so on. So you end up with a list of words that you want to try, and they mean more or less the same thing. They're all synonyms. So that's what we did with our keyword searching in our search strategy. But a quicker way on eBay of seeing all the rain jackets would be to use the preset categories. So as you can see at the top there, I've got into fashion, women's clothing, women's activewear, and eventually found a category for rain jackets. So in the databases, there are categories just like this. It tends to be sort of medical concepts and illnesses and that kind of thing. And we'll have a look at this in part 2, like I said. So we're getting to the end of part 1 now. In part 2, I'll show you where to find out about the QMU databases that we have and how you would choose the best one for your research topic. I'll show you how to do a keyword search based on the search strategy that we constructed in this part. I'll show you how to look up the mesh terms and how you can combine your mesh search and your keyword search to get rid of any duplicates. I'll show you how you go about applying the different filters and how you can create a folder where you can save articles and searches. So that's part 2. But part 1 is now finished. So thanks again for watching this, and I'll see you in part 2.